Scott, you awake?
Like, yeah. Just woke up a little while ago.
Yeah.
You have coffee yet? Doesn't sound like it.
No, it does not, right? No, I gotta eat my breakfast too. So I gotta do a little intro here and then kick off Josh so I can sit here and eat my breakfast. So I got up at 6:30 for you, Joe, just so you know.
6:30.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you even knew what that time was anymore.
I don't anymore, man.
Do you even know what AM is anymore, or you just go right to PM?
No, you go to bed at when you go to bed at 1 o'clock, that happens, that's for sure. So
I know it does. Just so everybody knows, I'll get emails from Scott or text messages at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's the craziest thing.
That's funny.
Oh, man.
Gotten a couple of those where I wake up in the morning at like 5:36 in the morning, and I'm like, why is he texting me at 1 a.m.? And it only happened like twice, but I've been like, this is weird.
Oh, that's funny.
I've encountered the same thing. I wake up, I'm like, did he email? I put my phone on Do Not Disturb because I can sleep. And I'm like, 2:30 in the morning, like, wow. All right.
Yep.
well, the funny
When the
thing
mood
is
strikes,
half the
Scott
time
works.
Gabe replies.
Yeah,
Gabe replies to
true,
me at
I
like
know.
2
True.
in the morning. Yeah.
My
Yep.
phone is on Do Not Disturb from like 10 p.m. till 7 a.m. I think, but I'm usually up and working by 5:30, so I turn it off manually.
Wow.
Yep.
All right. So I guess we'll get this thing, at least kick it off. It's after a few minutes after 9. Scott, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get this kicked off.
There's always people who come in late too, and I'm not sure if D's gonna make this one or not. So
Okay. And Joe, since I haven't had my morning coffee, I'll let you do the intro, and then I'll also help on the intro. I'll pick up the pieces that you missed.
Oh my God, no problem. All right, everybody. Good
I'm
morning.
your Barney, you're the Fred.
Yeah. Not a problem. So first of all, good morning. Welcome to DealMasters. This is actually it involves anything to do with real estate except for landlording. We're actually going to be talking about commercial real estate this morning. What we go over, remember, talk to your accountant, talk to your attorney, because what works for us may not work for you, and vice versa. We're going to give you the best of our advice to the best of our knowledge. Again, always verify. Okay. This one right here, actually, obviously we do this one the first Thursday is a Zoom meeting. The second Thursday, there's going to be if you go on the FFREIA website, you're going to be seeing the main meeting, which is FFREIA.com. We were discussing it earlier. There's going to be a special guest speaker. He's been involved in real estate for about 11 years, 500 plus deals, talking about deal flow. And there's also going to be a class that they're going to be holding Saturday, this coming Saturday.
nope, Saturday the 15th.
Oh, Saturday the 15th. I'm sorry. I apologize. Thanks, Andy.
You're good.
We're holding that. Get registered for that. He's also going to be able to meet him in person. This next Thursday night, it's going to be at Eagle Vale Country Club. Networking starts at 5:30. He's going to be there. He'll be speaking from 7 to about 7:45, and then a ton more networking. And I know they're probably going to get people registered for that for that event.
Yep, we're already up over. I think we're getting close to capacity in the room. I think the room we have it set for, I don't know, but it's getting full fast. So it was we were already at about 50% capacity after like 4 days. So
wow,
it's getting full. Well, it's because it's cheap, right? If you remember, it's less than $50.
Yeah.
So we're trying to fill the room and add as much value as possible. We pretty much break even between food and space when we do these events.
Yeah.
So the group's not making any money doing it, but it's helping members learn stuff. So
it's adding value.
Yep.
And for $50 to talk to a guy who's done over 500 deals, ridiculous.
Yeah, it's 50 deals a year. He's closing a deal a week. I mean, that's pretty good deal flow, right?
Yeah, it is. That's fantastic. So, and then there is going to the third Thursday we do this meeting live and in person. It's going to be Ferrari's Pizza, and then the fourth Thursday is going to be. I know they're coming up with a brand new name for do-it-yourself real estate, which is directed toward housing providers, landlords, till your heart's ever so content. Those two meetings start at 7:00 at Ferrari's Pizza. Just go on a website, be able to take a look at it and be able to see people in person.
And did we change the date for their meeting? We were talking about actually bumping it to Tuesday. And
I forgot. Has that changed? I don't know if that's changed yet or not.
It looks like it's still on the calendar for Thursday this month.
Make sure you guys check it out on the website.
I'll check with Kayla and make sure that we've got our stuff correct.
And then there's also Coffee Club. That's been switched to Mondays. Starts at, what does that start? 7:00, Andy?
Coffee Club is, I think, officially 7:30 start over at New City.
Yeah, New City Cafe, Parcells Avenue. You want to start your week off fantastically and network and a whole lot of caffeine. Be there. Okay. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
As
far as I know, we're good. We're recording this video and it's going to be up on Zoom at some point. So if you can't stay for the whole thing, it'll be up on YouTube by probably tonight or tomorrow. Depends on how long it takes to rip the video and get it in there.
Perfect. And I think we're all set. Scott, are you all coffeeed up?
I'm not all coffeeed up, but I can talk a little bit. All right. So as Joe said today, conversations about commercial real estate, investing in commercial real estate. And we're super excited to have a young gun with us, Josh Rosenberg. And Josh made the transformation from a W-2 employee while he was working a W-2, and we'll explain that a little bit more. He was building a real estate portfolio at the time, and I'll let him talk a little bit about how many units he got up to. And he has since sold off part of that portfolio, and he transitioned into commercial, which a lot of people do. I did the same thing. Joe's doing the same thing, and we found out yesterday is funny because Joe, Josh, and I were talking, and Josh did his first real estate deal before he was old enough to drink legally. And we found out that I was loaning money to Josh to buy these deals, fix and flips and some rentals. And then coming to find out, Joe actually was wholesaling the deals to him. So actually, I was writing a check to Joe. So, Joe got me once again. But yeah.
It wasn't all his deals, just a few of them.
Yeah. And and we recently found out Josh is just tearing it up in the commercial world. He's really super smart. He's 26, I believe he is. And his knowledge is well beyond his years and what he's doing his deals on. And we recently found out that the first deal, I think it was, Josh, to correct me, he purchased it. I'll let him go through that. But we did, it was recently announced that he has over $800,000 in equity on that property, on that commercial property. His value has increased over $800,000. And he's 26. Remember that, everybody.
And that's just one deal.
So, there you go. On one deal, right? So with that, Josh is driving up from New York City. He actually used to drive tankers, oil tankers, if I remember right. These things are like 300 yards long, I think it is. But I'll let Josh explain all that. But Josh, thanks for joining us. He actually made a stop on his drive up from New York, stopped at a rest stop so he could join us and just chat a little bit about commercial real estate. He does have a hard stop. We usually go till about 10:30 with these, but Josh does have a hard stop, and I want to respect that and allow him to get back on the road and jump on his other calls. But Josh, with that, go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and tell us the true story about driving them big oil tankers.
Well, that was a great intro. So my name is Josh Rosenberg. I grew up on Long Island. I went to college in the Bronx, and when I was in the Bronx, my roommate was from Rochester, and he's like, "Oh, my brother was buying houses in Rochester for 40 grand," and then I started working on the tankers and having that $40,000 house mark in my head. I came up to Rochester one day, met with Colleen Brocky and Brian Timmings, and that was really it. I think I purchased my first one in August of 2018, and then continued with the residential until, let's say, beginning of 2022, and now I only do industrial, or I should say mostly industrial.
Josh, how many units did you get up to let people know how you transitioned out as far as for your residential versus what you have now and square footage wise that you were telling Scott and I yesterday?
I got up to about 60 units, which 50 of those were single families, and then I had a few mixed use and duplexes. I sold off probably about 20-ish units now. All my real inner city stuff I got rid of, because like most people after during and after COVID, you just got destroyed with non-payers. And now I have somewhere around 180,000 square feet of industrial with another 75,000 square feet or so under contract.
Wow.
And
You've done this in how long?
I'm coming up on, in 2 months it'll be 6 years.
Wow.
So it's been I mean, but really the residential stuff, I built a lot of equity, but I wasn't cash flowing at all. So it's really only been, I don't know, the last 8 months where I've actually seen any cash flow.
Mm-hmm. Now I know Scott and we were talking about this, and I've mentioned to other people before. So while what Josh hasn't told anybody, if those of you don't know, I think you were 2 weeks out of the month, you were in the water. He had no cell phone service and no internet.
Yeah, I was working 3 weeks on and 3 weeks off. Well, for the last at least 5 out of those 6 years, and I was in the Gulf of Mexico. Luckily, the last year I was in the Gulf of Mexico, though, they put cell phone towers out there, so you would be 200 miles offshore with full service.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh, I think Scott, you back?
Yep, I'm back.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah, what happened? I had to reconnect. I was having a little problem
Oh, no problem.
here, and I was hoping that was on my end. So, but I'm good now.
Yeah, we just went over a little bit more story of Josh and how it basically got started. 3 weeks of being out out in the water.
Josh, I drive by your building every single day, at least twice a day, every
on
day.
Lee Road?
No, the one in Williamson.
Oh, on Railroad.
On Railroad. I drive by it at least twice a day when I go to get my son from school.
So,
because I live in Pulteneyville, so for me, it's a straight shot down Tuckahoe, and then I turn on Railroad to get over to 21 to hit the traffic light. So,
yeah, that was actually my first deal, my first industrial deal.
It's a cool building, man. The guys are out there all the time with the motorcycles, and they got a bunch of cars in the front. It's interesting when I drive by now. They all just kind of give you the eye when you're driving by in the car. It's funny.
Yeah, I like it over there. That Tennings, he's all right, but as long as they pay, it's one of those things you never hear from these guys.
So, Josh, you were talking about, I know Scott, you probably missed it. Josh was talking about how he wasn't cash flowing like he was. And obviously, I assume you had some equity, but what, I mean, in regards to where you are now with the, with industrial, how much easier is it for you to cash flow with those? And then let people know what kind of industrial you do. I mean, you know, do you, because I know some people, they just do, you know, some people will rent out to certain businesses or whatever. I mean, because I don't know, I don't know what the breakdown is with the types of people that you rent to or what type of industrial buildings you buy. Because some of the people here also do residential and are going into commercial. So I just wanted to see what the difference is and how you transitioned over into that.
Yeah, I would say what's becoming my specialty is buying vacant industrial buildings. As you guys know, the value of a commercial building is just based off of income. Buying something that's vacant, you could get a way better deal. At least with residential, if you want to do a value add, you have to fix up the buildings. But even in the, you know, in the case of the railroad building, it's in decent shape. And right when you add a tenant, that's where you add your value. I think that's a lot easier in cases. And then as far as cash flow, I'll buy these vacant buildings, and instead of getting greedy and trying to, I shouldn't even say greedy, trying to push market rents, I'll cut my rents by 20, 30% just to get people in there, because if the building's large enough, well, if you get a good enough deal, you could cash flow at, you know, I was cash flowing when it was half occupied, my big building, and then everything after that was gravy.
Wow.
And then in terms of what type of tenants I rent to, I do mostly small bay industrial. I would say the spaces are 10,000 square feet and less, and most of them are 5,000 square feet or less.
Do you have a formula that you use to figure out worth-wise in regards to the value where you got to be? Because I know a lot of people ask those questions.
Well, so that's my favorite part about any type of commercial is you could calculate per square foot. Everything's based off per square foot. When I'm outside of Rochester, let's say I'm 20, 30, 40 minutes outside of Rochester, I know that my price per square foot, I want to be $15 or less. And then if I'm in Rochester, I want to be $30 to $35 or less, which, you know, if you talk to a broker, they're going to say, oh, there's no such thing. But the last 3 buildings I bought have been way under that.
So when you mean per square foot is your purchase price?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like say the building's 50,000 square feet and I'm buying it for $10 a square foot.
Okay.
So it would be 500,000, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good way to do it, especially when the building is vacant. And it's funny when you hear the brokers talking about below replacement cost, because when you're talking about vacant triple net lease buildings, they're all below replacement cost, guy.
Mhm.
I couldn't agree more.
Do you do triple net lease, Josh, or how do you work that out?
Right now, no, all of mine are modified gross. Essentially the tenant is responsible for everything except the property taxes and the roof. But anything inside of their unit, you know, like it depends on the building makeup, but snow removal, lawn, they're still responsible for that. Any type of upgrades in the space, they'll be responsible for that as well.
Okay.
Cool.
And that's also been my, I'm sorry to cut you off. That's also been my target tenant is a mom and pop that maybe the triple net lease scares them, and they're okay with, you know, me just saying them, hey, your rent is X amount a month. It's going to be X amount a month for the remainder of the lease, and everything else is on you. And I think they like that rather than saying, hey, you know, you're gonna owe me an extra $5,000 a year for taxes, but it might go up. You're gonna owe me for X, Y, and Z. You know.
How long are these leases that you're doing with them?
I would say the lowest one's a year, and then they range up to the longest ones I have are about 5 years. A lot, and for the 1 year we do. The banks don't like 1 year leases, so we'll say, hey, I'll sign a 4-year lease with you, and I'll give you the option to terminate after year 1 and year 3. So it just looks better on paper.
Yeah, we have one that's commercial building up in Wyoming, New York, and the bank didn't like the 1-year lease, so we went back, talked to the tenant, said, hey, you willing to sign a 5? And that worked out very beneficial for both of us. It worked out beneficial. We did find that. Josh, are you, and when Josh got started in this, he called me and I'm like, dude, I know self-storage, I know residential, I don't know commercial. Unfortunately, I'll help you where I can, but I really don't know much about that. And when he was about going into commercial, I'm like, man, he's some big guts to do that. Those are big numbers. It's just like storage. And I'm real proud of you for what you accomplished. But did you take on a hotel? Did you move forward with that thing? I know you're looking at a hotel or a motel.
So I looked at I probably looked at 5 or 6 motels. This was right when I started to transition because I was getting so frustrated with the houses. And I never ended up going through with the motel, but I learned a lot about them. And, like just one, for instance, was in Pulaski, New York. It was one of the Patel family owned it. He was like, yeah, before COVID, I was making 40 grand a year, but now he rents to Oswego, the county of Oswego, DHS, whatever it is. And his rent roll went from 120 grand a year to 400 grand a year, and the place was a disaster. But I just couldn't bring myself to deal with that type of clientele.
It's like being back in the rental business, honestly. At that point.
And I found they were very hard to finance. Like you guys saw what Brett McManus did. You have to get super, super creative.
Another question that popped up here on the chat, and if you can answer it, great. If not, we could ask somebody else. But somebody asked, Jerry asked, what's a triple net lease? Can you explain that, or would you? Andy knows it too.
A triple net lease essentially is the tenant is responsible for everything, including property taxes, insurance, in most cases except the roof. And maybe Andy could say more, but essentially the only thing you're paying for is the mortgage or any type of debt coverage you have.
Yep, that's it in a nutshell. So Josh's play is basically the only value add play that exists in triple net. Triple net is usually a place for parking and building equity and insulating from economic downturns by just having an asset. So like most people in the triple net space play with occupied buildings. So like Walgreens with 20-year leases, Home Depot with 20-year leases, and the buildings are worth what the value of the lease remaining is times whatever the calculation is based on cap rates in the local market and blah, blah, blah. But long story short, Josh's play of buy it vacant, lease it up is the quickest way to build equity and value in triple net. Like that is the play. So like there's guys out there, you'll see like strip mall guy goes out and buys failing strip malls in bad areas, and his play is really easy. Better tenants, good tenant mix, make sure the signage is up to date, clean up the property and make it look nice, make it look like a place people want to go and shop, take care of the parking lots, do the landscaping, spend the money on that, make sure the roof is solid, and lease it up. And then he flips it after 2 or 3 years, right? That's his play. That's what he does. He does syndications with it. He's been doing it for years. Josh's play is very similar to that. So maybe someday Josh will be the industrial guy. He can start a Twitter account.
Cool. And well, thanks for explaining that, both you guys. I always kind of wondered how that worked, but when you drive by and you see those big empty buildings, like the Walmarts, and they build a Walmart like they build a Walmart right around the corner or something like that. That's what it is. They fulfilled their triple net lease, for the 20 years or 10 years or whatever it was, and then they just moved to another building, or they sign another triple net lease. That's cool to know. Josh, what advice would you have for somebody who maybe is looking to get into commercial? Some things to avoid, like, I'm sure like all of us, you scraped your knees along the way, what advice do you have for somebody who's maybe looking to get into commercial?
I would say the two biggest things for me at least is really understanding the environmental, because Labella might give you a different answer than Stantec in terms of getting phase 1 and phase 2s. And if you do get a dirty phase 1, if there's a way around it, and if you could leverage that dirty phase 1 to get a better price. And then the second thing would be make sure that you're always raising money. It's hard to go to a bank and say, hey, will you finance this vacant building for me when half the roof is falling in? It's almost impossible.
And tell people what phase 1 and phase 2 is. Not everybody knows.
A phase 1 is when an environmental company, they'll do a desktop search, and then they'll also walk your property to see if there's, in the past, if there's been any environmental concerns, if there's been a laundromat or a tank storage facility. And then while they're walking, they'll see if there's oil stains on the concrete or anything barrels of oil laying around, anything alarming. And if the phase 1 comes back dirty, then they'll suggest the phase 2, which means they'll do some type of testing, like drilling or, like a sample well, whatever it is.
And who pays for that, and how much is an average cost?
The phase 1 is normally paid by the buyer, and I've got them anywhere between $1,700 up to my most expensive one now is $3,500. And then the phase 2, I haven't had to do one yet, but I think they range drastically. Don Rodriguez got one that the seller paid for it. And I think in some cases the seller will pay, and then in some cases the buyer and seller will split it. It's something that's always negotiable, and I think it was around $15,000 the one he got done.
And Scott, not to interrupt you, I have a question for Josh also, is that what places do you avoid when it comes to industrial? What scares you? What businesses? I want to know.
I would say
tell us why. Tell people why.
Yeah, I would say body shops, any type of manufacturing that would pollute the property. You have the manufacturers that are clean, and then you have manufacturers that are just, like say they have hydraulic leaks in all their machinery. Well, it's gonna seep through the concrete and into the ground, and then your easy refinance might not be so easy when you gotta get it when a dirty phase 2 comes back and you have to clean up the property.
Same thing with dry cleaners. If you buy a property that's had a dry cleaner, even if they were only in there for 6 months, you can fail your phase 1 and phase 2, and that stuff leaches down up to like 75 feet. It gets in the groundwater, and it's millions of dollars to remediate. So any place you see a dry cleaner, steer clear.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I looked at a building on the corner of Lee and Lyle. It was the old gas station, and the thing is, the property is so small, maybe 1/10 of an acre. And in 2007, they got it cleaned up, and it was $500,000, and that was only 4 feet down that they scraped. So you can only imagine if it's 75 feet down.
Wow.
Yeah, we had a property we looked at, had a machine shop on it, and the phase 1 came back dirty, and because way back when, in the 50s and 60s, they're using these cleaning solvents that, people didn't know, they clean, they did what they were supposed to do, but people didn't really realize how harmful they were to the environment. So way back then, they were doing everything on the up and up and legal. And, since then, it's just become a, dirty phase one place, for lack of a better term. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it is. So, we walked from that property. But does anybody here have any other questions or anything like that, or something you'd like to know about industrial or commercial? And Josh, I know it's 9:30. I want to be respectful of your time. I don't know how much time you have. But if you need to go, I want to let you go too.
Yeah, I mean, if there's no questions, I'll probably get back on the road.
Well, I have a question. What made you decide to get into commercial or industrial? And how did you go about doing it, the transition?
The thing that drove me over the edge was just all the non-payers in my houses. For a while, well, I was buying in the inner city, and then I said, all right, I'm gonna buy in nicer areas, and I think it'll be better. And it was a little better, but I was still getting these people that were paying on the 25th of every single month, and it's hard to run a business with employees when you don't know when your money's coming in. And all the guys that I talked to that had commercial, like, yeah, we get paid on the 1st of the month, or we get paid on the 5th of the month, and that drove me. And why I picked industrial is I'm a blue collar guy by nature, and I could connect with these tenants.
How did you go about making that transition?
I mean, I don't know if I have a great answer for you, but really just one day it was actually on a Christmas. I was just frustrated, and I went on LoopNet and I called a few brokers on Christmas. One answered, and I walked the building a week later, and I purchased it. It probably wasn't the most thought out process, but I just jumped in, and then it was after that first property where I started selling my residential to build cash to buy bigger buildings.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I have another question too, Josh, and then
Yeah.
we'll let you go unless somebody else has questions. You talk about raising money. I don't want you to get a name of your lenders, of course. I'm one of them, but you have bigger fish now, that's for sure. I mean, the dude's dealing with some whales who lend out big chunks of money. How did okay, so now you're asking people for $300, $400, $500,000, where used to be you were asking for 30, 40, $50,000. How do you do that?
So most of it for me was a mindset change, because I used to think, oh, people only have 30, 40, $50,000. I just needed to change the pool of people that I was catering to. But the number one thing that's worked for me while borrowing more money is offering incentives on the back end. So the deal I'm working on right now, I raised $950,000 at 11%, and then on the back end, I tell them, hey, whatever the appraisal amount is after I have it leased up, I'll give you 3% of it. So these guys, if this thing appraised for $2 million, then they're gonna get they're gonna get that 3% of that as a kicker, and that's been, for me, that's been the best, because everyone goes for it.
Awesome. That's how you just get a little creative, everybody. It's 11% with a potential 3% kicker on top of that on the equity. That's awesome.
It can be
I do know
way
someone.
more than 3% if he does the value add right? So
I know.
there's skin in the game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You do that when you refinance it based on the appraisal, or do you let them stay in until you sell it?
Now, based on the appraisal, when I refinance, these guys do their first lien position, first lien, second lien, or in some cases we have a promissory note, but I pledge my LLC as collateral. So once I refinance, I pay them off and just deal with the bank.
Awesome.
What's the timeline it usually takes you to do that, Josh? What do you try to do it in?
So right now, the larger facility, from point of buying to, I don't want to say actual refinance, but the starting, like a appraisal period or working with the bank, it's probably gonna be 10 months. And I would assume I think it's gonna be around 12, 13 months.
Okay.
And then a couple other projects I have going on, I anticipate it'll probably be around 18 months.
So when you borrow that money, you're not making monthly interest payments. You're gonna pay them back plus 3% of whatever the appraised value is.
No, I make monthly interest.
Oh, okay, all right. I didn't know. I was just wondering if that was also on there too.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So, that's good. That's a great incentive for your lenders.
And
Yeah.
some of them don't want to be paid back until the end, but I don't like that because I want to show them, hey, you're getting paid back. I'm solid. You can see the money coming in every month.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, that little nugget right there that I've never thought of that. In all the years, all the transactions I've done, I never thought of something like that. That little nugget right there, everybody, it just kind of really paid for your membership to FFREIA. So that's awesome. But yeah, what I'm gonna do, Josh, if nobody else has questions, we're gonna let you run. Thank you very much for taking a break at a rest stop in the middle of who knows where and connecting up with us. And like I said, Josh is he makes things happen. He's like the silent ninja. You go in a room, he's not the big boisterous guy like Joe and I are sometimes. He's like the little silent ninja, and he just makes things happen. And I'm really impressed. I'm proud of him. Um, we met a number of years ago through Steve Peterson. Actually, is how we met. Steve says, "Hey, I got this guy. He's buying properties, and it's really sharp. And why don't you hook him up with doing some lending?" We did that, and I know Joe's done a number of deals with him too. But Josh, thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Everybody, we're going to stay on. Joe and I will stay on, and we're going to talk some other commercial stuff and answer other questions. But Josh, thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is a nice break.
Thanks, Josh. It was fantastic. Be safe driving.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Josh.
Thanks.
All right. That's cool. Yeah, we a little thing you talked about, it's just one way to differentiate yourself, with the lenders, because we're all out there paying, 10% interest, whatever the interest rate might be. But he did something a little more on the end of it just to make him look different. And as a lender, that's very interesting. Me being in self-storage, I am dealing with multifamily people. And one of the things that they like to do is they get equity partners, and they give a preferred rate, and then they also give a percentage of it too. And what the preferred rate usually is, it's like 8% interest. But you don't get that until you start turning a profit. So, some people hear 8% preferred rate, they think it's like a monthly payment, and it's not. That gets paid out when profit starts coming in. And when you sell the property, they're guaranteed to hopefully get their 8%. If there's any profit made, that preferred rate is paid first. So that's, I guess they do a lot of multifamily deals like that, and that's just another alternative way to make money in real estate.
There's so many different ways people are structuring syndications and prefs and all that other stuff. That's less so on hard money. But if you're in a syndication as an LP, the biggest thing you have to watch for is that you've got no control and you've got no collateral. And right now there's a lot of these syndications falling apart, and LPs are finding out that in that 140-page document they signed when they agreed to give up $50,000 or $100,000, they signed a PG on the property that now has negative equity. Or You know, they're
Andy, what's a PG?
personal guarantee.
Okay.
So basically, your personal assets are liable for the failure and the gap that the bank wants on this building, because when you bought the property in 2021, the building was worth $32 million at a 3% interest rate, and it was a 3.5 cap or 4 cap. And now you're at a 8% interest rate for your refi, and your property value is, instead of 32 million, closer to 20 million. So you went in and you bought this property and you put 20% down, and you as an LP were part of that 20% down payment or 25% down payment for the property. And all of your equity is gone, and you owe the bank money now based on the fact that you signed a PG for that as an LP with no control and no way to do anything. So it's super important to work with really well-established ethical syndicators, because a lot of them are taking 5% acquisition fees. Guess what? The market is 2%. If the guy you're working with is doing more than a 2% acquisition fee, unless they've got like a 30-year track record of success and they always close and they always return capital, that 5% might be too much to pay, right? Based on the risk. If you see like a 30 or 40% IRR promised, chances are you're never going to see that. Unless they've got a 20 or 30-year track record and you've got something in writing saying that they will return this money to you. But most of these people are just having all the equity in all their deals. I know somebody who's lost like $1.6 million in bad LP investments in the last 2 years. It's just evaporating and evaporating and evaporating. 100 grand here, 150 grand there, 50 grand there. 10 or 12 different syndicators, all Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn influencers, and all their deals are going upside down because they've been in real estate for less than 3 to 5 years, right? 70% of syndicators have less than 3%, 3 years experience. 70%. Less than 3 years in real estate. And most of them are still working full-time W-2 jobs, right? I'm a firm believer, if you're going to work for somebody or with somebody in real estate, it better be their full-time job, and they better be skin in the game and putting food on the table through it, or don't work with them. Anyway, I'm done. Yeah.
Quick question, Andy. Are they, let's just say someone puts in 100,000, are they only responsible up that 100,000, or can the bank go after them for
The
above
bank
and
can go
beyond
after them above and beyond because they PG'd the actual note for the value of the property. And they didn't read it. And they're not hiring the right lawyers. They're not having the right people review the underwriting. They don't know real estate because they're usually working a W-2. They want to be passive investors. I'm sorry, but investing in real estate isn't actually passive. Even if you're an LP or a hard money lender, like, you need to understand the business. You got to be able to understand a business plan. You need to know the market. You need to be able to review the underwriting. You got to know when a pro forma is just smoke and mirrors and BS. It's not passive until it's passive, right? All the work comes on the front side, and then the money comes in, hopefully, as long as it's a good operation. But 9 times out of 10 right now, people are getting their teeth kicked in. A lot of people don't even realize that their teeth are getting kicked in, and they're not being told about it because their sponsors or general partners are not communicating. So they're talking about dog parks and lease ups, and not talking about the fact that the bank is about to call a note and auction off their property.
Scott, are you scared now, like I am?
Always nervous, cautiously optimistic. And we are starting to see that in the self-storage business. And I'm going to promote FREIA here again for another minute. Is just kind of, that's the value of dealing with people like in FREIA. Joe, Gabriel, and I belong to another group of self-storage investors, and it's good because the self-storage investors in that are ethical people for the most part. It's like we say in the beginning, it's buyer beware. Make sure you're talking to your attorney, make sure you're talking to your accountant, not talking to their attorney. Get your own attorney. I can't stress enough. We have an attorney, Andy, who's our sponsor attorney right now.
Marchione.
Yeah.
John Marchione.
Yeah. Consult with him. if you're looking at the deal and you don't know the person. Just because somebody's in FREIA doesn't mean that they are gonna operate ethically. You know, we try to flush those people out that, and Joe and I have done it over the years, and Andy. You know, we have just flushed some people out. We're like, look, you're not a fit for FREIA. You know, but you know, it's that buyer beware. You know, don't jump on. I was listening to a Zoom actually yesterday, and it was a crypto. What it was protecting yourself and protecting your assets. And somebody was talking about they jumped on a crypto thing, a crypto Zoom, and there was like 10 people on there all together, and they're all like, yeah, crypto this, and this guy's great, and he's done that. Well, the other 9 people were his buddy, this guru's buddy. And, you know, they aren't really making money at it. You know, he just got 9 of his buddies to jump on this call and got one sucker. I'm going to say, I don't want to say sucker, but one person who just got caught up in the hype. And so just be careful that, you know, be careful who you're dealing with. Josh's a good guy, he knows what he's doing. You know, but we're starting to see that. You know, we know of deals out there right now that are going bankrupt. I talked to a guy, South Carolina. He owes $14 million on a property that right now is worth not anything. It might be worth $9 million, and he owes 14 million. He called me asking for help. I'm like, how can I help? And you know, the lender who lent the money wants the loan paid down because the lender now knows that property is only worth $9 million. I'm like, well, somebody's got to take that, you know, $5 million hit, and it's not going to be me. So you know, that's what people are seeing right now. So just be real careful on who you're dealing with.
Yep. There's two huge syndicators out there that are getting ready. They're having a bunch of their properties are actually going to auction, and most of their LPs have no idea that it's happening. So like if you've heard of Tides or GVA, both of them have properties that are due to go to auction in the next 3 to 4 weeks, and it's going to be a bloodbath when it actually happens.
Wow. So, Scott, can you also talk? A lot of people can't figure out, especially with commercial. Do you have like a back of the napkin way you figure things out? I know I do on certain things. It's not the be all to end all, but at least give people something, just something to base on. Say, okay, is it worth looking at? What do you do?
What I do in self-storage, for the most part, to build a self-storage facility is gonna, you know, it should cost about $35 a square foot. You know, that includes, it depends on where the land is. But you know, first thing I look at is like, okay, they're selling 10,000 square feet and they want $600,000 for it. Well, they want $60 a square foot. Typically, I can build one for less than that, but in some places, you know, it justifies $60 a square foot. I do that, and then the other thing I look at is in storage. You know, check out the competition. Is the competition full? Do they have waiting lists? Do they, you know, what are they getting per square foot? And I just do simple math. I'm going to use example of 10,000 square foot storage facility. If on a 10 by 10 unit and the competitors, that's 100 square foot. If they're getting $100 a month, they're getting $1 per square foot per month on their facility. So then what I do, if it's 10,000 square feet, a 10,000 square foot building should generate about $10,000 a month. Then I take 90% of that, because you never want to, you know, you never want to be 100% occupied. So now you're generating $9,000 a month. And then you have to take away a third for expenses for that. So now you're at $6,000 a month. That should be about your net operating income, roughly about 6,000. So I take that 6,000, I times that by 12. That's $72,000 a year that storage facility is generating. 72,000 at a 10 cap. And if you don't know what a 10 cap means, that's okay. I didn't know until I got into storage, but that's the cap rate you should be looking at. So I look at these facilities. If it's generating about $72,000 a year, I know I can buy it at a 10. I want to buy it at a 10 cap. Now it's a little bit higher, but so $720,000 is what I'll pay for that. If that property is well over $720,000, I'm not even gonna look at it. But if it's around 720 or less, I'm gonna take a harder look at that. So that's, that's how I do quick. They call it napkin math. Everybody in this group, I know you don't do, not everybody does storage, but other people, like when you walk into a house that you're gonna flip, like when I first did it, man, it would take me hours to figure out if I was going to buy that house. You get to a point where you're just like in 5 minutes, you're like, okay, I'm going to look harder at this or I'm done. So that's my quick napkin math. Joe, what about you when you're buying, let's say, a commercial building or
So
apartment complex?
yeah, so basically it's essentially the same. Like right now, we're in the process of buying an industrial building right now, and as long as inspection goes good. So the way I figured it out was that, and it's basically almost a triple net lease except for roof and AC unit, whatever. But keep the math easy, it was $6,000 a month, and so it's $72,000 a year. Now the tenant that's there is paying for everything else, taxes, maintenance, all that stuff. So it's 72 grand. So it's in a great area. Typically, in that area there, people are buying them for around a 7% cap rate, which is your rate of return per year, maybe 8, somewhere right around there. And so I knew that it was doing $72,000 a year. So I want to be in double-digit cap rates. And so I knew I'd be willing to pay around $720,000 or less for the property. Now I'm buying the property for way less than that. And as soon as I saw that, I said, okay, we need to look at this, because I knew selling it at what it's worth somewhere close to $1 million. So when I saw that back of the net, and that took literally just a couple of minutes. And by the way, like Scott, it took me a long time to figure out this stupid, simple formula. Because number one, I was like, I don't know how to figure all this stuff out because there's so many numbers. But all I did was to keep it simple, because I'm a very simple person. What's it making? And where am I going to be? Where am I going to be at the end of the year? And right then and there. So as soon as I saw that, I'm buying it at a really good discount. And then I knew I had to look into it. So now we're going to contract, contingent upon that. But the other issue, the other situation on that other end for me, especially at commercial properties, I want to know that I can get rid of it. If God forbid, something happens, I want to know I can sell it quickly. So it leaves that spread. So right now we're technically buying this place at around a 13% cap rate, which is 13% per year, which is absolutely fantastic. Okay, very excited about that. So once I saw that, I'm like, oh God. And then we went to our lender and that we're partnering up with. He was drooling when he saw that. It wasn't, I didn't even have to ask him for the money. He goes, we're in, just like that. But that back of the napkin also gave us the go ahead to say, hey, you know what? We want to be able to take this a little bit farther. Okay. And some of the ones we've looked at, they were asking a 4% or 5% cap rate, which is 4 or 5% per year. And I'm like, well, wait a second. If I'm only making 5% per year, but I'm paying 8% interest, when you go to the bank, 7.5%, that's just not going to work. Anyone have questions on these numbers that Scott just went over and I just went over? By the way, don't be afraid to ask.
And another thing too, I'll ask is, anybody on this call, do you have like a formula you use? I know there's some people on here with experience. Do you have, like, when you walk into a house or whatever you're doing, do you have a formula that you use? You just, kind of in your mind when you're walking through a property? Does anybody else have anything you want to share?
Scott, it's funny though. I mean, I think also, if I may jump in real quick,
Yeah, thanks,
I
Gabe.
think after so much experience and time, I've done, I don't know how many phone calls, but you gotta get the just be without even doing a back of a napkin. Like when I call sellers, perspectives, I'm sorry, owners of facilities now, and of course I go on maps and measure out the square footage roughly. And when they give me a price, because I asked them what they want to sell their property for, like I know, so now I got to the point where I know now, like when they give me a ridiculous, asking price, like I don't know how it works, but like it just got to the point now where it's like I know, like that's not gonna work. I won't call them again. I guess it comes with time and experience too, without doing a back of the napkin, you know, scratch, chicken scratch kind of thing. It's like it's kind of funny how like you just, after time and time and working with people and calling them, it's like, oh, 1.2 million for 6,000. Like, I mean, it's exaggeration, but you get my point is that it's just like, okay, it's like, or it's in like I already figured out the per square foot and like, all right, I'll call you never, it's like, I mean, it just, I don't know. I think it's all, what I'm trying to say is that it just comes with experience as well, after talking to so many people.
Hmm. Scott, one of the things too, which a lot of people fall, I don't know if, I'm sure you've gone through it. I know I have, whether it's in storage, and I'm sure Gabe has, some of these sellers are like, well, my expenses are only 12%, 15%. And we all know that's not realistic. Or especially on like even like on apartment complexes, or even on whether it's industrial or some of the plazas. Well, I take care of stuff myself. Or they'll purposely say, well, management is only 5%. And we all know those are not realistic. I know I've run into that. I've got some crazy stories on that, but I want to hear from you, Scott, or other people if they've actually gone through that, because obviously that can make or break a deal in regards to, that's how they'll actually inflate the prices of what they're trying to sell.
Yeah, we see this a lot with wholesalers. Their job is to sell properties and make as much as they can between, and a wholesaler, if anybody doesn't know, somebody puts someone in a contract for $50,000 and they want to sell it to somebody else for $70,000, so they get a $20,000 fee. That's how a wholesaler works. A good wholesaler who can negotiate good, they can, what they do is they take that property and they fan it out to investors and make the deal worth it for investors to buy. But we've been seeing wholesalers who they overinflate what the value of the property is and they underestimate what it's going to cost to get that property to that value. So that's a big thing that we're seeing now. But also, as Joe said, with sellers on properties, they talk about how low their expenses are. We know because of our experience in self-storage and the other people that I deal with in the storage rebellion, your expenses, you should really budget 30 to 35% towards expenses before debt. This is before debt too. I want to be clear. And then also, but you take some states that have a high tax base, you got to use a 40% expense ratio. Texas, it is surprisingly high what they get for taxes on commercial property there, but they don't have state income taxes. So, it all balances out. Illinois is brutal when it comes to property taxes. A guy and I were looking at a property. We're going to pay about $350,000 for that property. Granted, the property up and running and right is probably worth about $700,000, but still, okay, $700,000. the taxes on that property were, let's see, they were $36,000 a year was the property taxes on that. That's hence the reason we didn't go forward with that property. New York State, we all know, you all operate in New York State. So, there are some states that are pretty tax friendly when it comes to commercial properties. We like those. So, but yeah, that's saying people are like, well, I pay my property taxes and I pay insurance. Well, do you pay maintenance fees? Well, yeah, but I do most of the maintenance myself. Well, I can't. Do you have somebody manage it? No, I manage it myself. I take all the inbound phone calls and things like that. Well, we can't, at the scale that we're operating at, we can't do that. We can't, take the phone calls and everything. So, and Gabe sees this, how many times have we seen this, Gabe, where, you're talking to a seller of a storage facility, like, oh yeah, my taxes are this, my insurance are that, and that's my expenses. Like, okay, right. So yeah. But then we have other people, it's like they write off their car, they write off their home, they write off like all these dinners they do at, they're like, they show us a spreadsheet on the P&L. It's like, they're doing $80,000 a year in income, but their net income is like $11,000, because they write everything off. And then they come to us and try to tell us what it's worth. It's like, well, how can you say it's worth that? You only make $11,000 a year. It makes for a fun conversation with people. So,
Yeah.
And then also another thing that we see in storage from time to time is, I say, when you barter on something or when you take in cash, you're supposed to report all that. And some people barter on that. It's like, well, but also people also they donate. A couple of storage facilities we looked at, it's like, I have these 2 storage units. I'm like, you're not getting any income on those. What's up with those? They're full. That's a church. I donate that back to the church. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. We just need to know those things. So, when it comes to commercial, there's more zeros and the commas are in different places. You just have to be more cautious so you don't wind up like what Andy said. These people who are in trouble and underwater.
Yep. Lots more zeros. There's a lot of distress out there right now. And I mean, it's a good opportunity because, I mean, when properties start going up to auction, that's kind of when you can buy low, especially if it's been mismanaged. So a lot of these companies, bought the property, hired a third-party property manager, and walked away. This is talking about commercial multifamily, right? So not storage. Storage is a different set of math completely. And so is triple net. Triple net is a whole different beast. Multifamily, it's all about NOI and getting real numbers. And when you see, they're trailing 12 and you look at the gross revenue at the very top line, and they're showing on a 1985 apartment complex or apartment building that they've only got 35% expenses and they're in the Northeast, that's a huge shenanigans call. Like, there is zero chance that if they're not deferring maintenance and treating the property right, that they're at 35% on a 1985 build or a 1970s build or a 1960s build. Like, it's about average right now to be at 50 to 55%. If you see anything lower than 45, it's like, holy crap, panic, because there's going to be CapEx and all that other stuff.
Yeah,
so,
Andy, when you're looking at that and you talk about, for people who don't know what T12 is, it's the last 12 months of rent that's coming in, not last year. So if you're looking at it today, you want to know from June of today till June of last year, not just all of 2023. Because if you just do, I just want 2023 12 months, it's going to be different from what it is now. It could be higher or lower. And yeah, so I always tell people 50 to 55%, unless it's been completely rehabbed, then you have a little bit of leeway, I would assume, Andy. And one of the things too, and Scott, I'm sure you've gone through this too. People buy, I don't care if you're doing commercial, industrial, residential, or if you're doing storage. People bought a building or buildings maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago. And all of a sudden, they paid $500,000 for it. So it's assessed at $500,000. And then they sell it for, $2 million or something like that. Some people come in there and they're still going, and even though the tax assessment hasn't gone up, a lot of people don't take that into account. So they're figuring the old tax assessment, and next thing you know, they buy the building and they're like, the town comes in or the city or whatever says, hey, you paid $2 million for it. So that means you think it's worth $2 million. So we're going to tax you at $2 million. Now some places that may not be too bad. Up here in New York, that's a whole different ballgame, as a lot of us can attest to. So you really have to take that into account. And there's actually a couple things that we did for the building that we bought, which I'll go over. But Scott, have you gone through that, and has that killed any of your deals, or you had to walk away from any of your deals, or anybody else on this call?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. When Andy had mentioned there's more zeros and the commas in a different place on these. Yeah, when you're talking to that person, it's like, oh yeah, well, I pay my taxes and I'm paying my insurance. It's like, yeah, but your taxes are based on, what you paid for that property in 1976. And now you're selling it to me for 5 times that price. My taxes are going to go up that amount, and some people understand it, some people don't care, and that's fine. But yeah, Joe's absolutely right. When there's more zeros on it, that bigger zero on the tax will eat it up, and you have to put that into account on that. So
And
the easiest
don't
way to
forget
find
about the
out
insurance.
yeah
Yeah.
um an insurance example, we had a property that was down in Mississippi, south of Interstate 10. And let's see, last year we were trying to get insurance on it. The current seller was paying $6,000 a year for insurance on the property. We're getting quotes of $38,000 for insurance on this property. We called the current provider and said, hey, we're going to be buying this property and we know you're insuring it, and understand you probably don't want to lose the business. We'd like to do business with you. We know they're paying $6,000 a year. Do you guys, would you guys be willing to insure that for that? They actually laughed. They're like, no. They go, when this insurance expires, we will not be renewing it at this price. I'm like, well, what will your price be? They go, oh, it'll be $42,000. That's why this guy wanted to sell that property. So we went back to the seller and told him. He's like, well, what do you want me to do? But yeah, so it was going to go from, like I said, we were budgeting $6,000 a year for insurance. $38,000. That's what, $32,000 more than what he's paying. And at a 10 cap quick value, that's $320,000 of value that just evaporated from that property.
Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty much industry wide and nationwide. So like every commercial operator that's out there is taking increases. Plan on it for 2025. Like it's coming. 2023 had losses. It went up. 2024 has got losses. It's going to go up again in 2025. You need to be on the phone with your insurance people like regularly, being like, what am I looking at next year? I need to plan my budget. I got to know what before you do a rent increase, before you do your budgets for the following year, you need to know what that stuff is going to cost you, because it is going to be ugly.
Yeah. The apartment complex that we got, guy was paying 13,000. We were getting quotes of 27,000, 30,000. We got it way down. We went back to that guy and said, hey, but yeah, so we had to negotiate that down. And well, by the way, what Scott, in regards to the tax assessments, I don't know if you guys have done this. I know what we had to do to keep our tax assessment low. We had the guy form an LLC the week before. And then, because we wanted to make sure there's no liabilities coming back on us, we ended up purchasing, obviously, the LLC, the company itself. So that way, and then obviously So at least that way it didn't seem like we were paying, an absorbent amount higher than the actual tax assessment of the property to keep the tax assessment low. So that's also another way to be able to, at least for a while, help keep your taxes down. Scott, have you done that on any of your deals? No. Did we lose Scott?
Scott, you muted.
Yeah, thanks. I've never done on a property that I've purchased, but I have done on a property that I've sold. The buyers wanted to do that. They set up the LLC. And then we just assign the LLC to that person, and that, I don't know the total outcome of it. But we did that once again with an attorney following the paperwork. We used Steve Peterson at the time. You know, Steve operates in New York. He does a great job in New York. I operate outside of New York, but this property was in New York. It was actually Bob Napier and I owned it. And then, we had Steve verify all the paperwork and just made sure everything was on the up and up so that we didn't get in any trouble. Once again, consult with a professional if you're doing something like this. Involve an attorney. Yeah. Now, I myself, I may look to do that. I've never done it on the buy side. But I do know people that will buy LLCs, and I was advised by my attorney not to buy an existing LLC, especially one that's been in formation for a while, because when you buy the LLC, you buy everything that goes along with it, lawsuits, liens, all that fun stuff. So that's why I will never, I will tend not to buy a LLC. So, yep.
And by the way, we're not trying to scare people, by the way.
Just take our experience and use it to your advantage. Save yourself some time, effort, and money.
Yeah. I know, I've heard other people I know people that I've talked to, they only buy strip plazas. And one of the things that they're careful about is sometimes they'll have what's called the anchor store. And they know that the anchor store is going to be gone within a year. And the anchor store is actually the one that draws the most people to that plaza, which also helps bring in some of the other smaller, maybe mom and pop or smaller type businesses that keeps that strip plaza busy. They know that anchor store is going to be gone. So they're like, you know what? I got to sell. And that happens. So you got to go in there. You really got to do your research. You really got to talk. Don't just take everything on paper. Go there and physically just, just physically talk to them. You may have to go. I don't know if it's a possibility to go there when you're not there with the seller. Just go back on your own time. Say, hey, listen, I was here looking at this place. I just want to make sure that, if I purchase this place, I want to make sure you're going to be here. What can I do? What does it need? And find out, because that does happen. And Scott's laughing about it because I'm sure he's had stuff with fake leases, which I'm going to let him talk about too, and stuff, or family members and things like that. There are pitfalls that you definitely need to look out for.
Yep. There's a ton of scary stuff in triple net that you can do, and it can be something as simple as, it's not just, the anchor store is leaving. It's the value written into the lease of the existing tenants is dependent upon the anchor store. So if the anchor store pulls out, they have an option to terminate the lease completely and just leave, or their price per square foot drops to something unsustainable for the property. So there's Dan Lukowitz came on my show last year and talked about all these wrinkles in the lease and why it's important to work with a broker who actually gets that side of the business, because you can evaporate like $500,000, $2 million worth of value for your property just by signing the wrong verbiage in a lease.
Yeah. Yeah. Check those leases. We all only have so much time. Time's the most valuable asset you have. And people will come to me and want me to help them with a storage deal, which I will do. But you have to understand that if I'm helping you with your storage deal, I'm taking away from my storage deals and my other partners and my family. So what I'm saying is I can't emphasize enough how important it is to, bring in an expert that maybe has experience in the field that you want to do and offer them some equity in the property. They have a vested interest in the property. You're going to get a ton of value. Yeah, it's going to cost you some equity, but trust me, the amount of money you're going to save and time and the amount of additional money you're going to make usually more than offsets that equity that you're giving up to somebody. Like if I were going to buy an industrial property, I would not do it on my own. I'd reach out to Joe, I'd reach out to Josh and say, hey, can you help me with this thing? I want to be partners with you. And I have people in storage that come to me like, hey, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, what are we talking about? And sometimes I'm taking like 30% equity in a property, 50% equity, all depends on what we're doing here. I can't stress enough how much it is to hire and find a competent professional. Like Andy said, don't hire these Instagram gurus or, like I said, the Bitcoin guy. Hire somebody that has experience, that's been doing this for a number of years, that's trusted and respected in the industry. You're going to save yourself a ton of time. I know, a couple people on this call, you're not sure what to do. Lean on our experience, lean on somebody else's experience. If you want to get into rentals, find out who is the best rental guy in FREIA that you like to work with personality wise, and tell that person, hey, I want to buy this rental. Would you consider being my coach? I'll give you some equity or I'll pay you to do it. I can't place a value on that. I belong to it's a storage rebellion. I've had Mike Wagner on here before. We're good friends. I love that guy. He has saved me a ton of money and he's made me a ton of money too. I pay to belong to the storage rebellion. It is well worth it for me to pay that money on that. I had to stop looking at that as an expense. I had to start looking at it as an investment. Once I did that, once I said, okay, this is not an expense, this is an investment, my earning curve, they call it a learning curve too, but my earning curve went like this. I mean, it just skyrocketed where I was running pretty good, growing a little bit. Once I found the right people to invest in to help me build my business and everything else, things just took right off.
Time value of money is a thing. Opportunity cost is a thing. They're both very real. So if you're going to, muddle through and get punched in the face a bunch of times and do it the slow way, you're not just, saving you're saving yourself money by not bringing somebody in or sharing equity or paying a coach or paying for training or a class or a group or an organization, but you're losing your butt in time and time value of money. Do you think the dollar is worth what it was in 2020 right now? Think about that on a scale where there's 6, 8, 10, 12 zeros behind it. And then where you could be today if you had a faster ramp up time. That opportunity cost is a real thing. You are literally losing your butt.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions or anything you want to bring up? I know it's 10:15, 10:18 where you're at, 8:18 where I'm at. If anybody doesn't have any other questions, you got 12 extra minutes now to go do a deal. You can make 3 phone calls. How many phone calls can you make in 12 minutes, Joe?
A lot. A lot.
Gabe,
Okay.
how many phone calls can you make in 12 minutes?
About 15 to 20.
There you go. All right. With that,
Are
I'm
they
gonna let
the
everybody
only
go.
So 2 changes announcements wise before you hang up, everybody.
Go ahead. Thanks, Andy. Thanks.
This meeting is not happening in July. That is July 4th. Not happening. We will not be here
4th.
in a month.
Yes, sir.
So
Independence Day.
you got it. Day before my birthday.
There you go. That's right.
And the second thing is the DIY REI is now called Buy, Hold, Manage, and it is on Tuesdays at Ferrari's. So it will be 4th Tuesday at Ferrari Pizza Bar. That's it. Those are the two changes.
Awesome. All right.
Are we doing a summer party?
It's funny
Was
you
that
should
in
ask that.
discussions?
Yes, we are. It is actually replacing the third Thursday, one of these meetings in August, because the third Thursday happens to fall on the 15th of August. So we will be doing our picnic at the White House Lodge on 8/15 instead of doing a DealMasters in-person meeting.
Perfect.
Mark your calendar now. I can't tell you how important that day is. That is, in my opinion, the best real estate networking day period of the year. That is the networking real estate day of the year. There is no other real estate events in Rochester that are bigger for networking than that holiday party. 8:15. I wish I was going to be there. 8:15. I will probably still be recovering from Sturgis. I'm going to the Sturgis motorcycle rally that ends on August 11th. So,
Oh.
so with that, everybody have a great day. I'm going to run myself, but we'll catch y'all soon. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great
See you
day.
guys.
Go do real estate, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.